What's up guys, welcome back to Kit Guru. So for the last couple of months I've been working on the AMD frame custom build. I managed to get that finished recently. The final video for that is on the channel. So if you were following that series and you've not seen that final video, I suggest you watch it because it turned out absolutely looking stunning, that system. It's actually one of my favourite custom builds yet. Because I was spending so much time on the AMD frame, it means I've been neglecting some other jobs. One of those jobs is the Fractal high contrast build. You might have seen a couple of months ago I released the first video for that. We did some mods to the case, switched the orientation of the motherboard and put the radiators in position. For those of you that maybe didn't see that first video or just need a recap and your memory jogging on that one, because it's been so long since that first video. So basically what we're doing here is something similar to the AMD frame. It's another custom build, not in an open chassis. It's going to be built inside the Fractal Meshify 2. There's also some other Fractal parts, power supply and fans. Because this build is sponsored in part by Fractal Design and also by scan.co.uk. So Fractal's sent the case and the fans, power supply, and we've also had the other hardware supplied by scan.co.uk. So we're using a Asus ROG Strix B550E gaming motherboard. The CPU for this one is an AMD Ryzen 7 5800X, so a strong gaming CPU. And then the graphics is this Palette RTX 3080 Gaming Pro. We'll be removing the cooler from this and putting an EK water block on there. And obviously the cooling system, as I've said, we've got some radiators inside this case already. So the cooling system will be a full EK custom loop. We've got two EK Coolstream CE280 radiators. So these are the slightly older, they're not the new surface radiators. So there's two 280mm radiators in there. We've also got at the top of the case a flat reservoir that I'm going to convert, or I'm hopefully going to mod to turn it into a distro plate. When we first started doing the case mods, originally I was going to put a 360 flat reservoir in there, but because of the thick radiators I couldn't quite fit that in, so I've slimmed that down now to a 240. So we've got some work to do on that as well, because as I said, I'm going to modify that to become a distro plate rather than just a flat reservoir. But this is not going to be too long a video, this one, because I'm actually taking a break for a bit after this video. So I just wanted to get something out there for those of you that were maybe wondering where the next video is. So the plan today is trying to map out the tubing runs, because I want the tubing to be all vertically, or as many of the tubes to be as vertical as possible. I'll probably have to go through the back of the case and maybe use some bulkhead connectors and things like that. So we need to plan out the tubing. I'm going to have to remove the cooler from this graphics card, install the EK water block. I'm also going to have to temporarily put the EK CPU block onto the motherboard, get that in position. So this is one of the EK quantum magnitude blocks for AM4. I like these water blocks, one of my favorite water blocks out there. I'll have to put the motherboard in position as well, so we can, you know, rig everything up and start doing, I'd say it's doing the final mods to the case before it goes for painting. And then hopefully in the next episode we'll be able to start building this system for real and get to see what it looks like. So let's get on with taking this graphics card apart, installing the water block, get the CPU, motherboard all in position, and then work out how those tubing runs are going to go. So we're looking good so far. I've got the motherboard in position temporarily and the CPU blocks in place. There's no CPU in there, just put the block on so that I can get the tubing right up to this top distro plate. Graphics card's also in position. You'll notice we've got a water block on it and also an EK active backplate on that, so should keep that card nice and cool in this system. I've mounted the pump down here under the power supply shroud. I tried to keep it as far away from the power supply as possible to give me room for cables and in case any other tubing needs to go through the top of the power supply shroud. I do remember in the last video a lot of comments said about the power supply is going to be blocking some of the I/O ports on the motherboard, and that's correct. I'd thought about that. That's not really a problem because what I'm going to do is do some extensions, so the USB Type A's and Type C's, I'm going to extend those and have them at the back of the chassis there, so it is in the way slightly of the I/O ports, but it's not a problem because I really needed to route those to the back of the case anyway, as well as probably HDMI and DisplayPort as well. So the plan is to route those down there and still have those accessible at the back of the system. So the plan now is to get the tubing routes sorted out, and then there's a couple of little cutouts I need to do still on the motherboard tray for cables and whatnot, but once that's done, then the system will be ready, or the case will be ready I should say, for painting, and then in the next video it'll come back, it'll be painted and we'll be ready to build the system. But before that I need to get these tubes sorted out. So the plan, I need to come out of the pump, I'm going to run a tube up the back of the motherboard tray here and then into the first radiator and then back out of the radiator into the distro plate, and then we should have a tube coming out of the distro plate into the graphics card, back out of the graphics card into distro plate again, into the CPU block, out of the CPU block into the distro plate, and then out of this distro plate, back into this radiator, and then out of the radiator, down the back of the motherboard tray and back into the pump again. The distro plate on the top is currently an EK flat reservoir, but I'm going to adapt that and hopefully that should work as a distro plate and a reservoir. Capacity should be enough for the system. If not, I'll add a small reservoir under the power supply shroud. But that's the plan. The tubing I'm going to use as well for this is the Corsair satin black tubing. This is 14mm tubing. I've got 14mm EK fittings, and this seems to fit well inside those, and it's nice and tight fit. I've used this tubing before and it usually works well. And the plan is to run every tube in a straight line, so there shouldn't be any bends needed for this system. That's the plan anyway. So yeah, that's the thing to get on with now, is map out these tubes, and instead of measuring them with like a tape measure or a ruler, which could be quite awkward because where's the reference point really to go off? There isn't really one. What I'm going to do is cut these pieces of tubing, put the fittings in place, and then just eyeball them in really to make sure that they look straight, and then mark them up on the distro plate and where the cutouts need to be on the motherboard tray. So that's the next job to get on with. So we've made some good progress there. All the main tubing runs that I needed to get in before disassembling the system again, ready for painting the case, they're all in position, they're all looking good, all running nice and straight and all vertical as I wanted them to. There are one or two tubing runs that I didn't do because these from the radiator to the distro plate, they are using the original inlets and outlets at either side. So they'll be easy to do when the system's finished or when I do the final build. It'll just be a case of running some offset bends and putting them to the distro plate. So that shouldn't take too much time. The tubing at the back of the radiator, they'll be the only bends that we'll need in the system because they're going to run out through the back of the motherboard tray, and then there'll be a bend and then it'll run down the back of the motherboard tray, and I'll put some fittings on the end of those tubings, and then we'll probably run some soft tubing to them to the pump. So we're starting to get an idea now how the system's going to look, and I think looking at it now, I think it's going to look really good when it's finished with these vertical tubing runs and with this switched orientation of the motherboard tray. There's still a few jobs to do, so there's a few extra cutouts I need to make on the motherboard tray for some cable pass-throughs. I also need to make some custom cables for the Fractal power supply, and there's those other high contrast accents as well that I need to add to the system. But the next time we see this system, it should all be painted up, ready, and we should be able to get on with the final build in the next video. So that's all we can do for now. This is going to be all disassembled again. The case will be painted before the next video, and then we'll be back with some more footage. Let me know what you think of the build so far in the comment section. Let me know what you think of this layout and these tubing runs and everything else we've done in this video. If you've enjoyed watching this video and you enjoy watching this series, don't forget to give us a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button. If you enjoy the content from Kit Guru and you want to help support us, you can always head over to the store and buy some merch, or you can even subscribe to our Patreon. And as always, if you want to catch up on the in-depth technical reviews, head over to our website.